Hey, Kaleem,
Yeah.
whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. It's not 1:30 yet.
Oh, it's not 1:30?
No.
Okay.
What happened to the little brother Woodrow Love? Wasn't he up there on that front page? Brother Woodrow
Yeah,
Love?
we moved it around a little bit. He's right there. This is Atlantic City.
Oh, you moved it. Okay.
Straight on down the line.
You arranged Atlantic City.
Yeah, Atlantic City, straight on down the
Oh,
line.
good. Okay. All right.
So we were just...
Now, in concluding this, when the slave traders and the black traders of Africa, traitors, different, traitors, when the slave traders and the traitors of Africa called themselves Muslims, were fighting each other and carrying on and weakening their people over there so that the white traders come in there and get us, take us on slave ships and bring us here. Now, all right? Yeah. So now, when all that happened, what you think was happening to our human soul? Let me tell you, God has given me an eye to see into the very abstract form of the human being by my study of the Quran. Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you what was happening. I know, as if I was there. The soul of those victims had given up on this world. They knew they were going to their death. They knew they were going to circumstances that were going to finish them off. They would never have their lives again. They knew that. But in their soul, they were saying, our children will one day be free again, and they will serve God. We have failed, but our children will one day serve God. And now their prayer that they prayed in the deep recesses of their soul has come true. And not only are the descendants of the black people of Africa from Islam coming to Islam, taking up the divine cause, but those who never were Muslims, their children from Christianity, their children from Judaism, their children from paganism are embracing Islam in America. And we are going to build new Africa. New Africa, right here in the United States. Allahu Akbar. And the soul of those suffering victims, they're rejoicing because of us here today.
Don't work against us becoming Muslims if that's our choice. America is land of the free and home of the brave. And damn it, I'm brave and I'm free. And you can't take it away from me. I'm going to have freedom of choice. I choose Islam. I choose Quran. I choose Muhammad. I choose this religion for myself. And as long as my children are under my supervision and not of age to make their own decision, I am choosing Islam for all of my children. As long as my wife will like me, will love me, and she doesn't have to love me, as long as she respects me. I choose Islam for my wife. And that's my responsibility. And I hope you all feel the same way. Thank God we are free at last. We are free at last. You're not free when you're just free from physical bondage. You're not free until your mind is free. And your human spirit is free. Your human spirit will take you where God wants you to go. And if you got that human spirit that will follow what God wants, your mind will be blessed by God to know how to get your body there. To get your body there. We're tired of being spooks in America or anywhere else. We are no spooks. We have a human body like everybody else. Don't tell me to accept God, immigrant Muslim from Pakistan and from Egypt and other places. Don't come over here and give me a life of Muslim ritualism. I had enough ritualism. I feel the genes in of my foreparents. They are in me. and I have a distaste for too much ritualism. I want reality. I want reality, and I want a place in this world. I want to obey God, and I want to get my share of this material world. Don't give me a spirit of...
Thank you all for coming. This is the history and impact of Islam in Atlantic City. And my name is Kaleem Shabazz. I am a councilman in the 3rd District of the City of Atlantic City. I'm also honored to be the president of the Atlantic City branch, the NACP in Atlantic City. And I am here with my companion who is taking a silent position, Lester Muhammad. Lester is the curator of these exhibits that you see around the room. We're going to let you, after the video, take a look at some of them. This is the order that we're going to try to go in today. Introduction and purpose. We have a video which is about 17 minutes long. Then we're going to ask you, let you view the exhibits. Then we're going to have Q&A. Hopefully we'll go that in an hour. This room brings back memories because I'm also on the adjunct staff of Stockton. In fact, this was a classroom that I was in for a couple semesters. So I'm going to try not to bore you with a long presentation. But I think it's important to have a structure in any presentation that you give. You can be fluid, but you need to have some structure so you start and hopefully get to a goal. The start, obviously, is to let you know something about Islam in Atlantic City. And hopefully at the end, you'll know a little more than you came in with. And if you have some questions, we'll go into questions and answers. Obviously, in an hour, we can't do justice to the topic of the impact of Islam in Atlantic City. But what we'll try to do is just touch on some highlights. I think the video will add a little more to it. When you walk around and look at the exhibits, that will add another layer. And then if you have any questions, we'll try to answer. Why is it important to even understand the impact of Islam in Atlantic City? I think that that question is answered really by the impact of faith in general on those of us who lived in Atlantic City or brought up in Atlantic City, have experienced in Atlantic City. Without being too emotional, I believe that you can say that the progress that people of color have made in this country has been fueled by their involvement in religion. And I think you could also say, with some historical accuracy, that the leadership of religious leaders has propelled us forward in terms of social and civic and political gains. And that's true in Atlantic City. I was taken by what Sister Taria said in her presentation about the North Side when she talked about the classifications of people in various religions, how people in the Pentecostal church was more working class, people in other religions, the Episcopalian church was more upper middle class, and Baptists sort of covered the whole waterfront. If you look at Muslims in Atlantic City, most of the early Muslims in the 30s and 40s, when the Nation of Islam first started, was people who were working class. People who worked in the hotels. There wasn't any casinos then, obviously. People who worked in the hotels, people who worked in restaurants, people who were chambermaids, people who did what we call days work, which meant they worked in suburbs, houses of people. That was the people who were members of the Nation of Islam. We used to say, Reverend Bill Gray, I remember, made a speech. He said, when we couldn't be a treasure of the city, we were the treasure of our church. When we couldn't be elected in office, we were head of the deacon board, the trustee board. It was the same thing in Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam had a paramilitary arm called the Fruit of Islam, which was the men, and they had the women, which was the MGT and GCC, was Muslim Girls Training in General Civilization class. So the person who might have been a cook in the hotel was a captain in the MGT. The person who might have been a clerk in the retail office was the treasurer or the secretary in the Nation of Islam. So even though in many times we were restricted in leadership positions in the broader society, in the Nation of Islam, you had leadership positions that people rose to. In the GCC, MGT, the Women's Auxiliary, you had captains and lieutenants and women who had leadership in that position. In the FOI, you had men who had leadership positions. And of course, as in every religion, you had the ministry. You had the, not the pastor, you had the minister. Then you had the assistant minister who gave the teaching. Islam at that time was centered on the social conditions that people of color had to be involved in this country. Same as the church. The reason that we have a black church is because you couldn't go into the white church. That's the history of America. The reason that we have, even in Islam, even though there's not a color bias, ideally in Islam, as though it was not a color bias in Christianity, the reality of America is that there is color bias, and there is segregation, and there is racism, and there is discrimination. And unfortunately, in 2022, everything we do to a great extent is still colored by color, still colored by color. And a friend of mine said the 11 o'clock hour is the most segregated hour in America. In Islam, although it is not supposed to be like that, you still find houses of worship which are predominantly African American, houses of worship which have Muslims from other countries or predominantly from whatever country that they happen to immigrate from to come to America. Now somebody would say, well, Kaleem, can't you go to any mosque that you want? Yeah, of course you can. Like you can go to any church you want. But the reality of it is that because of the cultural aspects of our worship, that more people feel comfortable going to a church that relates to their culture or a masjid that relates to their culture. That's why you find those different kinds of congregations. Real quick, Islam today, unfortunately, we were talking before we started, many people have a vision of Islam that started in the destruction of the towers coming forward. When you ask people, what is Islam? What is Muslims? Those are people who came to America and destroyed the Twin Towers. Those are the people who over in Nigeria are kidnapping those girls. Those are the people who in Afghanistan won't let women go to school. Those are the people who have all these extreme ideologies that cause them to commit terroristic acts under religion. And that is an accurate picture of what is happening, but that's an inaccurate picture of what Islam really is. Why do I say that? Because the practitioners of Islam who understand their religion, you will see a different practice than those people who mouth their religion and implement it incorrectly. Let me drill down a little bit on that. Jim Jones was a Christian minister, but he is not representative of Christianity as any of us understand it or accept it because of what he did. Bin Laden said he was a Muslim, but he is not representative of anything that we accept or understand Islam to be. No one who is you don't have to be a serious student of Islam or of religion. No one who is a serious observer of religion will accept the thesis that you can kill people in the name of religion. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. That does violence to your common sense. I don't care what religion we're talking about. We sit down, we start talking about religion, and we start going back and forth, and you say, well, I think that if a woman comes out of the house and she's not veiled, she should be killed. I mean, your common sense, whoa, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't comport with religion as we understand it, as we accept it. That doesn't make sense to have a belief in God, a belief in humanity to do that. And I'm gonna stop in a minute, but I just wanted to say that I think it's important that we understand what people who are practicing Islam, how you differentiate from what you might see on television, or what you might see in the media, or what you might read. And very quickly, Islam has 5 basic principles: belief in one God, belief in fasting, belief in pilgrimage once in your lifetime if you can afford it. Zakat, I was going to say zakat. Thank you.
Prayer.
Zakat, prayer, and Ramadan. To Ramadan, which we just come through, is a practice that Muslims around the world are involved in. What is that? What is Ramadan? Very quickly. 29 to 30 days of fasting. You don't get anything from the morning, from dawn to sunset. And then there's restrictions, because somebody's saying, whoa, wait a minute, if a woman is pregnant, if you're nursing, if you have a medical condition, if you're traveling, if you can fast with difficulty, those are exemptions that you don't fast, and you in a place of that, you're supposed to feed a hungry person. That's the basic pillars of Islam. Obviously, there's more to that, but that's the basic pillars of Islam: prayer, fasting, charity, Hajj. A Muslim is a person who should be trustworthy, who should be civically involved, who should be sober-minded, who should be rational, who should be someone that is a person who you would feel comfortable giving the trust to. In fact, Prophet Muhammad was known as the trustworthy one, al-Amin. People who were not Muslims felt comfortable enough with him because of his character to trust him with their belongings. And the same thing with a Muslim. If I was at a service, and the preacher took a topic, and he said the topic was, if you have to tell somebody, Pastor, and he went on, and he said, if you have to keep telling someone that you're born again, that you're saved, then something is wrong with your practice, because they should be able to see that from how you carry yourself. And it's the same thing with a Muslim. If a person has to keep telling you that he is a Muslim or she's a Muslim, something is wrong with their practice, because you should be able to see that from the way they act, the way they interact with people, the way they interact on the job, the way they interact in the community, the way they interact with their family. Does that mean they're perfect? No, it doesn't mean they're perfect. But it does mean that they are committed to doing better. It means they're committed to being fair. They're committed to being just. They're committed to being equitable. Talk too much.
Okay,
That's the.
I'm gonna do the intro on the video, please.
Okay, that's the introduction. My silent partners come out of the sign. So that's the Muhammad on the video. Then we'll do the exhibits, and we'll take questions and answers.
Okay. You hit the button. The video itself, this is part of the archives of Muhammad's Temple number 10. and Minister Woodrow Love, and some of you people may know him. He took a lot of Dr. Ridgeland Goddard is here, and also Wanda Abdullah. And these two sisters actually interviewed Minister Woodrow Love before he transitioned. And they were able to preserve that. We didn't know this history that you're about ready to see now until I didn't know it until a few years ago. And I think a lot of you are going to be surprised as to what was going on that time. It is really from the time that he started this work and the fact that Alhaji Malik Shabazz Malcolm X was one of his students when he came out of prison, right here in Atlantic City, was under the direction of Minister Woodrow Love, and trained him, helped him in his training and his development before he took over and got his first assignment from Elijah Muhammad in 1954 to go to New York. And in this, Minister Woodrow Love will talk about that and the fact that he assigned him to go to Philadelphia before he got his first assignment to go to New York. So,
Let me just say one thing. See, you should have got me started.
okay.
Real quick, the reason that number 10 is instructive, Atlantic City's Muhammad's Mosque number 10, the reason that it's instructive is because the Nation of Islam before, during its height, had 77 temples across the country. And to show you how early the Nation of Atlantic City was in that, number 12 is Philadelphia, which was obviously a much larger city in Atlantic City. Number 25 is Newark, obviously, which is a much larger city in Atlantic City. Number 15 was Atlanta, Georgia, obviously, which was a much larger city in Atlantic City. So Atlantic City is in the early history of the nation.
Here's the other piece of doing fit the block. Muhammad's Temple number 10 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, is the first temple in the tri-state area of New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. This was the headquarters for the Nation of Islam during those early days. That's all I have to say. Hey, good
Well, we broadcast Mr. Muhammad speaks. Listen, Minister Malcolm X, substituting as a helper for another leader and teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and broadcasting tonight from Muhammad's Mosque number 10 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. That's Muhammad's Mosque number 10 in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
We welcome you, brothers and sisters, to Muhammad's Mosque number 10 for our youth day program. This is a beautiful night, but beneath this is the greatest. A beautiful night. Of all the days and nights of the week, Thursday night is the one we see. It's like taking a step toward progress. That's why we like Thursday the best. On this day, women of the Black nation gather to discuss unity and not division. We discuss our strides that we have taken and the religion of Islam which cannot be shaken. We learn how to improve ourselves a nation and thank Almighty Allah for the invitation. We learn of the earth which we help to build, and we learn how to protect ourselves and nation. It's a beautiful sight to see the woman of the Black race sitting silent, strong, and base, but there is joy and sometimes a peace among hundreds of women where there is nothing but peace. All this is worth greetings, there is a smile, but for loud self, we will walk on any mile. Lisa, Sister Marie, and Sister Lorraine X. I is for Islam. S is for our faith. L is for our mind. A is for the advances we are treasured. M is in the middle. So it is it.
Muhammad. His memory must be honored and respected for his years of dedication to the hub, a brother among men whose labor will live on, respectfully done.
I met Malcolm at the convention in Chicago, and Malcolm came to me and said, brother, said, like all the ministers sitting up there, look so beautiful. You don't want to know anything. You don't want to work. I want to work with you. And I want to stay with you. And so I said, I couldn't do that, brother, unless I got permission from the other side of my house. And I asked, and he says, take him to make sure that everything will be in his life for him. So I feel that he will be part of the assist to the nation. And so I told my boy, said, when I got through packing up, I told back was going back to Detroit, and his brother was. And so Mike walked up and said, let's go. He came to the city. And the first time that he was privileged to go to the temple, I found him. So he from the city. And then the minister passed, and then the ceremony, and then his first appointment was from Inaugural Muhammad, and he appointed him to go to Utah.
So what years were they with? Like this was like 1915 at the beginning?
Yeah. And later on, we do it, we pushed
Came back in the 40s in Atlanta City. Because number 10 out of, double digit temples for years. I was always wondering, how did Atlantic City, little Atlantic City, used to be 10. I think Philly is 12. They got we're right behind Youngstown. And I always kind of wondered.
If this history is to last forever and ever and ever, those 7 years what we put in to that, to make it is a history of that.
So we gonna talk about the pioneers
He's the
from
10th
that perspective?
temple that is connected to the history of the existing of the new nation. So many police, so many government officials surrounding the place we were meeting until no member or no one outside could get in to hear anything because they were blocked. And that went on right here in Atlantic City for 7 years. And I wasn't able to hold no meeting for 1 month. But when they found out I was meeting there, they were threatening to father, children, wife, and everyone else who attended. And the mayor called all the ministers of Alliance and told them to sacrifice because they didn't want Islam nowhere in the church. And all the preachers, all the people who worked for the city or had any government job could come to the meeting, either their family. And they made us move the 7 years when they found out that we held a meeting there. That threat came to the family and they had to put us out. And that's what went on with me and the other members for over 7 around 7 years. And the only way that they slowed down and they stop. A brother came on the service, and his name Joseph, and he came out of service, and after he embraced Islam, he said, "Brother, I'm not going to use my privilege or education. Say, I'm going to buy a faith for you."
Now, where was this place? Was it located?
419 Madison.
419 Madison?
Yes.
The legacy of the Ohio and Shabazz. We look at that legacy and the extent of what a person lived for, what a person died for, and what in fact he wants to be remembered for. We as Muslims are told that in fact, when you hear the footsteps leaving the grave, there's only three things that remain of you. That's the literature and information that you have taught others that continue on after you. The righteous Islamic education that you in fact have given your children, and those forms of continuous charity, and others will say also a good thing. When in fact we want to examine what the Ohio Shabazz believe in, we have to focus on the messages of the Holy Quran and on those things that have been exemplified and laid out in the traditions of our prophets of Almighty Allah that came before us. There's a statement in the Holy Quran that all scriptures will bear witness to, for in fact it has not changed in neither in any of the scriptures of God. It holds true to this very day. It held true then, and it's one of the things that inspired Malcolm in his life. Almighty Allah tells us in His Quran, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, say, "Come, I will rehearse what Allah God has really prohibited you from. Join not anything with Him. Be good to your parents. Kill not your children on the plea of want. We provide a substance for you and for them, come not nay to indecent deeds. Whether open or secret, take not life, which Allah has made sacred, except by way of justice and law. Thus doeth He commanded you that you may learn wisdom. And come not nay to the orphan's property, except to improve it, until he attains the age of full strength. Give measure and weight to his full justice. No burden do we place on any soul but that which he can bear. Whenever you speak, speak justly. Even if it is a near relative is concerned, and fulfill the covenants of Allah. Thus doeth He commanded you that you may remember. Verily, this is my way. Leading straight, follow it. Follow not others' path. They will scatter you about from His path, just as He has commanded you, that you may be righteous. Moreover, we gave these books to Moses, the books, completing our favor to those who would do right, and explaining all things in detail, and a guide and a mercy, that they may believe in the meaning of their Lord. Truly God has spoken the truth. If in fact we want to look at what was the legacy of Malcolm, Malcolm wanted to live what Almighty Allah had placed in this Quran. He died as what is called in Islam a shaheed. That means he died standing up for the righteousness and the truth that Almighty Allah has shown him in the Quran. He died a Muslim. He died one practicing submission to the will of God. He was one who answered the call that is given to us in this Quran when God said, I have purchased from you your very souls and everything you possess. Rejoice and triumphant in the bargain in which you have made with me. This is the statement from God. This is how he lived his life, rejoicing triumphantly in worshiping God and bowing down to God, and giving charitably for the cause of God, and spreading truth and righteousness for the cause of God, and then laying down his life, as it says in the Quran, for my every prayer, my every sacrifice is for the Lord of all worlds. The example for us in our lives, live that example. Vis-a-vis, you call yourself Christian. Vis-a-vis, you call yourself Muslim. Vis-a-vis, you call yourself whatever particular religion you have. That is the challenge that's been given to you by God. That is the commonality we all share. That is the goal and the objective of all mankind. Live what God has given us.
You're feeling sad and lonely, worries and troubles get you down. If you ain't got no money, ain't got no job after looking all over the town, when all the world seems against you, and nothing seems to go your way, brother, you gotta keep on pushing, for soon there'll be your brighter day. You gotta keep on holding your head up high. You gotta make your living reach the sky. You gotta take your punches on the chin, 'cause a winner never quits, and a winner never wins. Don't give up. You gotta keep on trying, don't give up. Ain't no sense in crying, don't give up. You gotta keep on striving, you gotta keep on trying, don't give up. Don't give up. You gotta keep on trying, don't give up. Ain't no sense in crying, don't give up. You gotta keep on striving, you gotta keep on trying, don't give up. You got to have what it takes. Sometimes you're gonna lose some battles, but you get back up and say, that's the grace. You can never get discouraged. Don't let nothing make you stop. 'Cause like mama always told me, she said, cream waves rises to the top. You gotta keep on holding your head up high. You gotta make your limit reach the sky. You gotta take your punches on the chin. 'Cause a winner never quits, and a winner never wins. Don't give up. You gotta keep on trying. Don't give up. Ain't no sense in crying. Don't give up. You gotta keep on striving. Gotta keep on trying. Don't give up. Don't give up. You gotta keep on trying. Don't give up. Ain't no sense in crying. Don't give up. You gotta...
you have there a succinct history of Islam in Atlantic City. The sister who's singing is Sawad Al-Amin, who is a local songstress. And I think that theme, Don't Give Up, really speaks to where we're at today in 2022. Whether you are a Muslim or a Christian or a Jewish person, especially if you are a person of color, Don't Give Up is our theme. I don't want to go into a political speech, but I will say this, that when you have a Supreme Court that's about to overturn women's reproductive rights, that's a signal to those of us, the people of faith, to get active. And that's a signal that if you understand your religion, whatever it is, and if whatever religion you profess, if it's not impelling you to social action and civic engagement, then I would say you don't understand your religion. Whatever your religion is, if this lets you see the condition of our people, people of color, and it doesn't impel you to take action, then you don't understand your religion. And if you see conditions in this country, and it doesn't impel you to take some kind of action, then you don't understand your religion. So we have 15 minutes left. Are there any questions? Easy questions, I'll take. Hard questions, get to lesson. Bishop? Yes, sir.
No, I was saying hi.
Oh, hi. Oh, sorry. How y'all? Good to see y'all. Question? Yes, sir, Pastor.
Help us to understand Islam,
right,
versus Black Muslims or Black Islam.
There's really no difference. Let me say this real quick. I like to talk, and I'll be talking all day. The Nation of Islam was more of a social movement than a religious movement. Why did I say that? Because the Nation of Islam was not constructed on Islamic principles as we accept and understand Islamic principles across the world. The Nation of Islam is a response to racism and segregation and discrimination in America. The Nation of Islam started, I was just telling brother, really in about the 1930s. And you remember in the 1930s, they were actually lynching African Americans in this country. In the 1930s, police brutality was all over this country. In the 1930s, you had discrimination and raw brutality against our people. We had a thing in the nation, I said, we had a board. Those people who remember of a certain age, they remember. We had a board in the temple, and on it had freedom, justice, and equality. And that was under the Nation of Islam. And on the other side of the board, we had a rope with a person hanging, indicating lynching. And the teaching, I was assistant minister, so I know this by heart, Bishop. The teaching was that if we had to come out of America because America's history of mistreatment of people of color was so bad. In fact, the theology, Elijah Muhammad, said that the white man was the devil. And that scared a lot of people. And he said that based on the history of the treatment of African Americans in this history. He wasn't theologically correct. We know better than that. We know that there's no such thing as a creation of a devil. We know all human beings are created equally, and we are the same. In fact, we know now that the concept of race is a bogus concept, social construct. We don't even accept in academia the concept of race. We reject that. That's across the board. Black, white, Jewish, Christian, people don't accept any religion. They don't accept the concept of race. But we know the history of America is built on the concept of race. We know that that's why we used to talk about reparations. Don't get me started on that. But, so that's the difference. Islam is the same all over. There's no such thing as black Islam, white Islam, or immigrant Islam. Obviously, there are different people who practice. There's culture and there's Islam. You get me to start. Culture is dress and food and language. That's culture. Islam is a religion. Islam is the same practice everywhere you go. But obviously, it's different dress, different culture, different food. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, my name is Bashir Khan, and my first marriage was to a Pakistani, and now I'm married to an African American, and my evolution in Islam, I didn't start out in the nation. I actually, in college, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and it just made a deposit into my soul. And when I came back home, I found a masjid that was not the Nation of Islam. And then it just grew in me. And what I can tell you in 30 years from my travel around the world, I've been blessed enough to make Hajj in my lifetime and go to Umrah and just living it. When I see black people here, and this came out of the mouth of my first husband, who was Pakistani, he was in awe at how we actually practice Islam. So when you see foreigners, and it's not all of them, it is what Kaleem said, it's their culture, opposed to we found something and we live it. I saw it when no greater sight that I ever saw in my life than when I put my eyes on the Kaaba, but to see tribes from Africa walking across in Mecca, to see African men, I swear to you, 7 feet tall, like hundreds of people just in white. The Africans stood out to me, and they spoke fluent Arabic, and just to sit amongst them down in the lower, I mean, you see 3 floors there, but it's actually layers underneath of that main floor there, to see them there reciting Quran. It's just something, if I had thought to film it while I was there, it would definitely move you, and I would just say, go back to the opening scene of Roots. When you see the slave ships coming, they are reciting the Al-Fatiha, which is the opening of the Quran. And, you know, it's that, it just moved me, and I hope to God that if anyone is Muslim, that you get the chance to go and see and experience Umrah and or Hajj, and I've been blessed to do both. So, Ameen, and it's just the best.
Anybody else has a question? I'm sorry.
Going back to this very question, you have to remember, which is very important. Elijah Muhammad said, he said, I'm not here to teach you religion. I'm here to clean you up. The one who comes after me will teach you your religion. And that was his son. His son gave, I guess, the best description, the one that I use a lot when defining or giving a definition for the Nation of Islam. He says the Nation of Islam was very similar to the civil rights movement, protesting the injustices that were inflicted upon the Negro people. So, on February the 26th, 1975, when his son took over, it was a beautiful day. The transition took place from that social reform movement to the best practices of Islam. And that's what we're seeing today. And over those 43 years that he was with us, he took us as far as we could go. And now you can see how the community has grown all across America. Here in Atlantic City, the South Jersey area, the number of centers, everything has grown. And it's just really been beautiful. So that's really the difference. The Nation of Islam, similar to the civil rights movement. Islam was not there. Elijah Muhammad didn't teach us Islam. His son started that process. And that's what we want. And he said, good, I'm not here to teach you religion. I'm here to clean you up. The one who comes after me will teach you your religion.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question they haven't answered?
I just have one question. The young lady that was speaking here, do you have to be Muslim in order to go to that?
You have to be Muslim to go to
Hajj,
Mecca.
yes.
To go to Mecca.
You go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
They're not going to let you in Mecca.
Hajj is a yearly activity, except for the year before that for the COVID, which is different. Because millions of people who come to the Hajj. But we have to be Muslim. Does anyone else have a question that they haven't asked? We have 5 minutes left.
And we do have next door there's plenty of brochures and literature at the book fair that's free. Free Qurans, everything over in the next door is free. That's on our table. Want you to take it if you can. You can learn more about this way of life and the faith. And here is the exhibit that we have here. This first wall here is mainly Atlantic City. And some of the things that, although you saw Muhammad Ali in a lot of those images, he was also spent a lot of time with us here in Atlantic City.
Right.
A lot of time, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up to the 90s, until he, just couldn't travel, couldn't do too much. But he was very instrumental. And so Atlantic City has a historical history in terms of Al-Islam and moving. As far as the, like I said, this is the first temple, first Islamic community in the city. Although you see like there's about 7 communities here, centers around the South Jersey area, Galloway, Apartment Township, centers all up along here. Our main 300 Albany Avenue, that's a generational center that was born out of the Nation of Islam. Well, that's social reform movement.
So when it's like Lester, yes.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
This young man and I grew up together in Atlantic City. When we were in high school,
right?
Did you know of Islam or the Nation of Islam when we were in high school? Or did you learn about it after we came back from college and you came back to Atlantic City? Because I know that I grew up with your family.
Right.
I think y'all were Baptists, right? And you grew
Second
up in that
Baptist
church,
yeah.
right? And what made you go over to the Nation of Islam?
We don't have enough time for that. we only got 3 minutes.
You can sum up some things.
We'll get kicked out. I'll very, very quickly. I used to go to the temple at that time. It was right around the corner from my house because it was 419 Madison Avenue. We lived 207 Massachusetts Avenue, and it was directly around the corner. So I went to some of the bazaars and some of the. At that time, there was 3 meetings a week: Wednesday night, Friday night, and Sunday afternoon.
Is this when we were in high school?
Oh,
or
yeah,
when you came back?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was all the time. And that was the structure of the Nation of Islam. Wednesday night, Friday night, Sunday afternoon, and Saturday morning was the physical education class. That was the structure. I was attracted not so much by the theology, because the theology didn't really make sense, but the self-reliance, do for self, be clean, be intelligent, be assertive, but non-violent. That was, we were going into the 60s and civil rights. So that's what attracted me. Like I said, the theology wasn't Islamic. I mean, when you look at the theology, you say, whoa, that's whack. But the concepts that the Nation of Islam was talking about then, we're talking about now. We're talking about building communities, education, living a sober lifestyle. That's what everybody's talking about. We're talking about having our religious practice speak to social conditions. That's what the Nation of Islam was. So that's sort of in a capsule. I don't want to go over time because Diane is going to chastise it. It's 2:30 and it's time for the next class. So thank everyone for their participation. Thank Leslie for his leadership.
Tell them that they can watch the replay on YouTube. Okay, on YouTube? On YouTube. YouTube. This will be on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
There's the old I was from the power.
Yeah, Western
Grocery store.
everything like that, so they're getting up, having to put the bell back to the prayer, the prayer. They got put that whole shit, and every time that the one
They were making too much progress.
Oh, okay.
I normally don't, somebody was asking me about this, I said, I normally don't like to sing the song, because
They've gone after the wrong thing, as we have gone after the wrong thing, after we got equal opportunity in this country and laws passed to protect our citizenship and our rights of citizenship. We started celebrating, having a good time, playing, laughing, dancing, getting high, and we forgot what God has done for us over all these many generations. God has permitted us to be used and abused more than any other soul of a human being. God has permitted that soul of the African people, African American people, or the African people, to be used and abused. But the God that permits that is obligated to do justice by everything. So in the measure that He has allowed us to be deprived, He must award us, and at least that measure or greater. So when we look at the sad history, as those sad turns of events in our life, beginning with the first one, putting us upon slave ships and bringing us here to be slaves as property of others, and following that at the terrible events in our life, when we look at those events and see the damage to our psyche, the damage to our life as human beings, and the threat to our future as human beings, when we see that and realize that we have overcome that, we're still here, we're still human, and we still perform an very excellent way, men and women, that says to us that God has not yet finished rewarding us. God is not through with us. Freedom and equal opportunity here, that's just the necessary situation or the necessary condition for us to begin doing what God has formed us for. And I say formed us. We are no more Africans like the Africans of the continent of the motherland of Africa. We are new people. We have a new mind. We have a new spirit. We have new sensitivities as a people. We have a brand new ethos as a race. So we are different. We are different. We are different in the abstract picture, and we are different in the physical picture. We are not abstractly the same. That is, our mentality is different, spirit is different, sensitivity is different, aspirations different, humor different. We are not Africans anymore of the motherland. We are Africans of this land, new Africans.